All right. Welcome to this episode of the Inflection Podcast. Super stoked to have Dominik Nitsch here with me today, all the way from Germany. Dominik is what he calls a self-proclaimed venture athlete. A lot more on that shortly as we'll unpack on this episode. For the past decade, Dominik has helped bootstrap a startup from $0 to $1 million in revenue and helped build an international business from scratch for one of Europe's fastest growing edtech companies. Scaled from 50 to 240 employees in his first 3 years there. Another cool detail is Dominic has performed at the highest levels of lacrosse, even representing the German national team at the 2022 World Games, the Olympics' little brother. Let's get it, Dominic.
Thanks for having me.
So
I'm
it's very
excited for
fascinating.
this conversation.
Awesome. It's very fascinating to me that term venture athlete. Uh, can you unpack that a little bit more?
Absolutely. I left university and figured, well, I kind of want to become an entrepreneur. I couldn't really find the right fit for my, like a specialized skill set. I've always wanted to do many things. So I figured entrepreneurship might be the best way to unite all these things. And at the time, I was already playing lacrosse, but not at a very high level. And I was like 6, 7 years ago, I picked up the level of play and had this crazy idea that at the time it seemed, to actually be able to make the national team. I wasn't a very good player back then, but I set this goal, and well, 2 years ago, I finally made it and went from being a second team player, not even being able to make the first team in a normal team in Germany to being one of the best in Germany. And that was a really exciting journey that I'm really, really proud of. Yeah. And
That's
basically,
amazing. I mean, the story for how you got there. Sorry, you go.
how I get there is pretty interesting. So I had a big inflection point when I started out playing lacrosse, and I was always injured. And going through 14 torn ligaments in my ankles, several soft tissue injuries, knee
Ooh,
issues, the
my
full
gosh.
program. And if you're injured all the time, you're not going to make it anywhere as an athlete. So 6 years ago, I started working with a personal trainer to really work
Let me
on my
pause you.
weakness. Yeah.
Let me pause you a little bit. When you say injury, like was that due to your form and how you were, in the sports, like the wrong form, wrong technique, or what do you think is behind a lot of those injuries?
Well, it was pretty evident to the coach I worked with. He looked at me, he did a couple tests of me, and he looked at me and he was like, "Man, your feet are weak as fuck." And I made a classic mistake. When I first started out going to the gym, I would mostly do upper body lifts because that's what looks cool in the club, like you want to have big arms, big chest. And I figured since I'm already playing lacrosse 3 times a week, like I don't need to train legs. And that was a big mistake. So basically, he taught me from scratch how to properly lift weights, how to bulletproof all my weak areas, specifically, especially my ankles. And yeah, for the last 6 years, I haven't had any issues, which is pretty crazy to think
Wow.
about, given that injuries almost kicked me out of the sport. And well, back then, I was known as the glass man in the German lacrosse community. I still get injured, but it's usually, this time it's mostly bad luck. So I recently broke my finger, for example, but that's something that you just cannot prevent. So yeah,
Oh my gosh. I like how you casually say broke your finger. That is
it's a
crazy.
minor injury.
Oh well, but thank you so much. I mean that underscores another thing, just the importance of coaches and mentors, where you could do something the hard way all your life or for a long time, and all it takes is having one coach in your corner, one mentor, someone who's been there, done that before, that can really save you a lot of grief. And for lack of a better term, like it's a great hack or
Yeah.
shortcut because you're essentially building on that coach who looked at you has probably seen that scenario again and again and again, so he can
Hmm.
spot it from a mile away now, and he can save you a lot of pain going forward. In fact, he is saving you a lot of pain going forward. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Um, Something else I want to unpack a little bit. So you're very down to earth. Like when we talked, like I learned a lot of these things later. So you've done quite a few things, quite a few accomplishments, right? And I just want to unpack and go into the headspace it takes to perform at this level. So just a quick few highlights. Teaching people in rural Rwanda and Brazilian homeless shelter how to make glasses for less than $1 and how to build a business around that. Something else is, through one of your companies, bringing unemployed nurses from Italy to Germany and teaching them German, which inevitably, right, opens up a career path for them and job opportunities.
Hmm.
And then expanding leading operating system for schools throughout Europe. I think 13,000 schools or something like that, crazy like that, to
At this
use
point, yeah.
cutting edge digital tools. And then obviously writing about your experiences online and building a following around that. So it takes a lot. A lot of discipline to be able to like perform at that level. So I'm just curious, like, how did you get to that point where you doing all of these crazy things that could take some people a few lifetimes to do, all in a relatively short amount of time?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the kind words. It seems pretty crazy to hear these things like being recounted back to you because that's just, I don't know, that's just what I did. And I think when I
Of
first
course.
started out, I did a lot of these things in university. So what you mentioned with the glasses projects, for example, this was during my studies, where I also worked part time and I was studying, and it felt just kind of natural to do all these things at the same time. But now looking back, I think there's a few things that go into this. So first of all is simply consistency. If you do something every day for a long period of time, then at some point success will follow. I didn't become a national team player overnight. It took me 5 years of dedicated hard work from the point where I made a decision I wanted to do that, of just training 6 times a week and taking care of my body and going into doing all these things. So yeah, but at this point, I get a perfect score on a functional movement screen, and yeah, that's pretty crazy to think about. And the same is true for pretty much anything, right? Like you won't turn around a business in a week or a month, but if you give it a year or two of free of just doing the work day in and day out, you're gonna see results. And I
Yeah.
think the same is true for content creation. I write every day. Hopefully, at some point, there's gonna be a breakthrough. I don't know, but I think the only way
Yeah.
to fail is to quit. So um, I think that's one thing. The second thing that's really important is time management. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, and it's up to you to how you use them. Right? So I see a lot of people wasting a lot of time at work by sitting in unnecessary meetings, by being distracted all the time, by working on the wrong things really. Then you see a lot of time wasted simply due to indecision because you don't have your calendar scheduled. Then if you have to make a decision what you're going to do next every single time, you're going to lose a lot of minutes. You all spend a lot of time on social media. I try
Yeah.
to
Tough.
set timers on Instagram and LinkedIn, and basically not have any other social media accounts simply because it's going to eat up a lot of your time. Like 3-4 hours a day is considered pretty normal these days, and that's crazy. So I think getting a handle on your time management is just super super key. Yeah, and then lastly,
Yeah.
it's all about managing your energy. You won't be able to do all these things if you don't get the basics right. Again, it always comes back to basics. Consistent execution and just doing, the things that move the needle the most, and in terms of energy management, that's get your sleep. Like there is nothing cool about working long hours or pulling all-nighters or anything like that. This may have been cool like 10 years ago, but I think it's just stupid and unreasonable. There's certainly times when you need to sprint,
Yeah.
but as an athlete, I look at it as from a more holistic point of view. I can't always sprint, I might go all out for a game, but then afterwards I need to rest. And I think the same way is true for mental work. If you pull an
Absolutely.
all-nighter, you sprinted a lot, and then you kind of lose your endurance, and you can't do that all the time. Same goes for nutrition. Eat the same thing for breakfast. I'm eating the same thing for breakfast and lunch every single day for years at this point. It works, and yeah, and then obviously exercise. If you're an athlete, that's kind of part of the equation, but
Yeah.
getting yeah, just really, it's, I'm not telling you anything new here, right? Like everybody knows this shit, but you got to execute on it. And I think this is
Yeah,
really what I think maybe also makes me different, because I've always been able to consistently execute and build habits really quickly. Yeah, and then success will follow. It's just not gonna come overnight.
that's amazing, that underscores something else that I have seen. Right, the myth of the success story. We look at
Hmm.
all these entrepreneurs or people who achieve, great things, cool things. They're like, oh wow, they just came from nowhere overnight. But no one sees, or very few see the nights, the consistent discipline over time, and the sacrifices really
Hmm.
that have been made, for them to get to where they're at. We just see the tip of the iceberg, and you don't see the whole ginormous ice mountain
Yeah,
underneath
that's
the
right.
water. And well, no, thank you so much for saying that. In an age right now too, where there's so many distractions, right? Every app wants to, get access to the not to notifications on your phone. As I said, right, your browser. So many apps, social media. Like there's so many things to just take your attention, and if it's 5 minutes there, 10 seconds there, 20 seconds there, it all adds up. A couple hours a day, that you'll never get back. So it's very interesting, like what you say about relentless, scheduling and discipline. Like you got to schedule things out. You got to go back to the basics, and really you got to build guidelines around device usage. I have timers
Hmm.
too for my device or my devices on different things, and for some of them it's a redirect. Like if I notice some apps that I tend to use, and sometimes I even circumvent the timers, right, I have
Hmm.
redirects to take me elsewhere,
Hmm. Cool.
so I can ride that wave to actually do something else.
So in a sense that you go to say LinkedIn.com and then it redirects you to, I don't know, something else where you can spend your
Yeah,
time more productively.
yeah. So I go to
Cool.
linkedin.com
Yeah.
and it just redirects me, to, let's say, I don't know, Grammarly, because I have the Grammarly app as well. Like
Hmm.
I write on there
Hmm.
directly sometimes to just
Ah,
put
I see.
thoughts down, and then I can edit it, so redirect to the website for Grammarly as an example. So I have little
Smart.
things like that sometimes, for apps that I tend to use, and I have timers on them as well. You reach a certain time and you can't use it for that day, anymore or something like that. That's very interesting. But I do think my prediction, with the rise of, so like we were saying, so many tools, so many apps, lots of opportunities to be distracted. I see a, what's the word? I see the pendulum swinging back, where people are
Hmm.
beginning to question these things. People are realizing, man, I'm spending 3 hours, 5 hours. No one wants to admit it, but a lot of us, in this age are addicted in one way, shape,
Hmm.
or form. To some people are addicted to sugar, some people are addicted to all kinds of things. But for a lot of tech workers, I think that addiction is actually, tech devices,
Hmm.
phone, within the phone, social media. A lot of these things are very addictive. So majority of us are walking around as addicts, but I think it raises the opportunity to build solutions, to help people, focus. Maybe another term
Hmm.
is distracted, where
Hmm.
we're addicted and we're super distracted, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what does it look like to help people focus, to achieve things? For me, it's I own an extension, a Chrome extension called
Hmm.
Self Focus, and self focus, allows you, like, eliminate distractions in your browser so you can focus
Hmm.
and get things
Hmm.
done. Maybe you're familiar with this, like the Pomodoro technique,
Hmm. Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you can block off time, 25 minutes, 1 hour, 30 minutes, no, as long as you need, to go deep, get work done, remove distractions, and then you step back out, to the surface for a break. You take a break,
Hmm.
you do
Hmm.
something fun, you go for a walk, you watch a video, whatever it is that gives you a dopamine hit, and then you go deep again. So you can do this for a
Hmm.
couple of sessions, three, four, five, whichever one you can sustain, just as a way to trick your brain into focusing.
That's right. Yeah. I've got a couple things that really help me focus. I started using the Pomodoro technique when I was in university to
Yeah.
study. because I figured out that university in Germany, or specifically business school in Germany, is pretty self-guided. So we have classes, and you are free to attend them, but you're also free to not attend them. So there's no attendance requirement. The only thing that matters is that you pass your exams at the end of the semester. And
Interesting.
once I figured
I
that
like
out,
that.
I was like, so basically this means I can just study on my own in a much faster way by, say, for example, using a Pomodoro technique and going super deep for 25 minutes and then going out of five for five, do that for 4 blocks. So 2 hours, do that 3 times a day, which gets you
Yeah.
like to a total of 6 hours of studying time. And this is like high exam crunch time, which means that you're not spending that much time actually studying, but when you do, it's highly effective.
Yeah.
And that way, I was able to work 20 hours a week during my studies and go to different countries and do all these social entrepreneurship things and play lacrosse. Because I found a better way to study. And I think this kind of disability has kind of stayed with me ever since. I get easily distracted because I'm interested in a lot of different things. So sometimes I go down these rabbit holes and then I become an expert on the newest deliveries of the A321 airplane,
Yeah.
accidentally. And but what really helps me focus is number one, having a physical checklist in front of me, like on paper, handwritten,
Nice.
and that says WhatsApp off, email off, phone out of reach, unnecessary browser tabs closed, water available, and next task is clear. These 6 things, I always want to try to make sure I have them, and that's going to help me focus a lot. You only have open what you actually need. Distractions are basically eliminated. And then I add one more layer on top of it, and that's called Brain.fm. It's a software that creates brainwave stimulating sounds. It's by far the best software purchase I've ever made. I bought it like 11 years ago on AppSumo when they ran a promo for like a $25 lifetime subscription. And I'm using it every day still after 11 years.
Wow. That's
um,
amazing. I'll
and
look
that
it
stuff
up.
is crazy. Like you put it on, and within 60 seconds, you're in the zone. Yeah, it works for sure. Or at least it works for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I try to make it my objective to get 3 hours of really focused work in every day. Depending on and this could also be meetings. Like if you're a
Yeah.
manager, I used to be for the last 3 years. I was a manager. So it's not always about writing or strategizing or anything. But if you
Yeah.
have a really focused
Um,
meeting and you're fully present and fully prepared, you can knock out so much stuff in 30 minutes. It's crazy. Like if you really prepare a meeting and if you're fully present and not get distracted by incoming emails or Slack or whatever, then you don't need more than 30 minutes. Like, never.
yeah. No, that's key. It's like work effectively, deep work
Yeah.
versus distracted work, which takes a lot longer um, and doesn't achieve anything. So let's go into venture athletes, right? You write
Hmm.
for what you call venture athletes.
Hmm.
Who is a venture athlete to you?
To me, it's someone who is interested in a lot of different aspects, and I obviously try to make this connection between business and sports because these are the two things that I like to do the most. But you can also take it a little bit broader. And to me, that's someone that takes everything they do in their life pretty seriously. So for example, this could be an ambitious amateur who's trying to run triathlon but also trying to be successful in their job. This could be a multi-preneur that's running different businesses at the same time. And it's all about people who approach it with an athletic mindset, where you, like I was saying earlier, where you don't just think about performance, but you also think about recovery. You think about training, you think about coaching. I think there's so many aspects from sports that translate really, really well to your normal everyday working life, right? Like, for example, in our jobs, we are asked to perform 95% of our time of the time, and maybe 5% of the time we spend studying or training. And in sports, it's vice versa. We train all the time, and then like we play for what, 1 hour a week, maybe.
Yeah,
And that's when we're asked to perform. So it's no surprise that we don't get like peak performance out of ourselves. We're looking to perform all the time. So the training and coaching aspect usually falls short when we're working. And yeah, basically using a lot of these mindsets that I've learned in my sports career, and putting them back to, well, anything else you're trying to do in life. Could also be learning languages, for example. And yeah, so these are the kind of people I write for. Ambitious amateurs who want to be successful in more than just one discipline in their life, and maybe also struggle to work, find their right calling in a what I call specialized economy. Because these days, a lot of companies are looking for specialists, but what if you don't just want to do SEO for the German market? What if you want to do more?
Yeah,
Well, then kind of out of luck.
I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. Thank you so much, Dominic, for coming on. Always a
you're welcome.
pleasure jamming with you and unpacking. I look forward to a lot more collaborations. I'll add notes, I'll add details to the show notes for those listening, and also the brainwave.fm thing.
Hmm.
That's a great idea. And maybe
Yeah,
some details on Pomodoro for those who want to take control of their work or focus really to be able to go deep with whatever task they're working on. Thank you so much, y'all.
thank you.